Okay, so I'm going to give you guys one tip about your objects in your games. You see right here, Space Invaders, we died. If I hit enter, I can shoot these enemies, or I can die again. And last time we added that text, and I told you guys about the font and how to display it on screen. It's right here. If you want, you can pause this and check it out. However, this part under it is really ugly, right? We made a bullet with the initialization function, and that's very reasonable. That's the way you make an object. But then we said, hey, we want 10 because we want to be able to like continuously shoot and keep adding more to the screen. And that's really ugly. If you have 10 lines in a row that are almost the same thing, you should suspect there's a better way, right? Then we did it again with the enemies. It's like, come on. They're almost the same, except they have the opposite velocity because the enemies shoot down and we shoot up, you know? And then we do a similar thing with the enemies. We make 10 of them and like or 9 of them in separate lines. It's really fine, but it's really ugly, and we think we just should do it a better way. So let's do it a better way. Instead of this stuff, we're going to say, okay, there's a list, player bullet list, and we just make it. And then we're going to use a loop, okay? We're going to say for I, or you can call it whatever you want. I is just the classic iterated variable. I assume that's where the I comes from, is iterating. And you'll see that in math class or computer science or whatever. For I in a range of, we have 10, so I'm going to say 1 to 11 because the way the range works is that it doesn't hit the last one. It's up to that, but not including, you know. So for I in range whatever, we're going to say player bullet list dot append a bullet with the qualities we need. 0, 0, 0, negative velocity. Okay, and then we can go, all of this stuff gone. And this does the job because we go through the range, add 1 each time. Let me hit run to show you that it still works, and then we'll do it with the other ones, and then we'll do it even better. Okay, so my bullets I can still shoot, and I'm not counting, but let's assume there are 10 on screen. It seems to be about right. And that does the same job. The only difference is we don't have names. We didn't name it 1 and 2 and 3 and whatever. But that doesn't matter because we never, ever, ever use the names. And if we wanted to, we could just call it like player bullet list 1, player bullet list 2, or starting with 0 actually. So let's do the same thing for the other one. And I'm just going to copy this. Whoop. Whoop. Fix the indenting. Change this to say enemy. I made separate lists because at first I thought, oh, let's just make one list of bullets and then there's a max amount on screen. But the problem with that is that you could just fill the screen. You could just shoot constantly, and then the enemy might have less of a chance to squeeze one in if you've like hit the max bullets, you know, and then they can't shoot back. That would be like a weird little trick you can do. So what I did was I did the same thing. This time it's the enemy bullets, and I made them have the opposite velocity because they shoot the other way. Now, noticing this, I see something that we can simplify even more. The bullets have initialization with 4 things. They have the X and Y position, they have the X and Y velocity. But we don't need any of that stuff except for the last one because we're starting them with a location when they get shot, not when they get created. And they never move horizontally. It's only one way. So we don't need any of this stuff at the beginning. Why don't we cut it out? I'm going to go up to my bullet class and look at the initialization and just say, we don't care about that. Boom. And then I'm going to change these to 0 because that's what they were anyway. Okay. Now I can go down here and cut, and let's hit run to make sure that works. Looks good. They're shooting randomly. I can get hit and die. They can get hit and die. And everything's still good. If I hit run 100 times, you never know. We might, encounter some rare situation where it's not exactly the same as it was, but I'm pretty confident in this. Now the next one is a little bit more interesting because the enemies are not all the same, right? When we made bullets, who cares where they are or anything? We're just going to pop them into the screen when they get shot, but not in the initialization. For the enemies, we actually do put them in a spot with different X and different Y for each one. We don't want them to overlap ever, right? So in order to do that, we need a slight extra thing. I'm going to say enemy list with nothing in it. And then we're going to have to do 2 loops, right? We're going to have to give them a couple different X's and a couple different Y's. It's basically the, I don't know if you ever heard it referred to this way, but it's called a Cartesian product. If you have like something going this way and something going this way, and they intersect to make a grid. And I think there's a Python module you can import to do this, but it's fine. We'll do it on our own. So I'm going to call it X and Y for the iteration instead of I, just because like it is X and Y. And then we're going to loop through like a row, do each one in the row, or a column, do each one in the column, and make a couple at a time. So my X's are 50, 210, and 370. Okay, this is not a range like the enemies. This is just a couple numbers. I believe this would be classified as a tuple, although who cares. And then I'm going to do Y in. We got some at 50, we got some at 100, and we got some at 150. And this means we're doing like, okay, this column, boom, boom, boom. This column, boom, boom, boom. This column, boom, boom, boom. So how do we do that? We enemy list dot append enemy X, Y, parentheses, parentheses. Get all that out of here. Okay, so now we have 3 loops that make the player bullets, make the enemy bullets, make the enemies. Let's hit run to make sure it works. And it does. Isn't that lovely? We used to have 30-something lines, and now we have 10. Okay, that's nice. That's better. We can shorten it even more, by the way, because if you see this chunk and this chunk are all almost the same. So I could take this line, put it in here. Instead of looping twice, you can just loop once and do both, right? So let's try that. Make sure we didn't do anything dumb. But no, it does the same thing, because instead of looping twice to do the same or a very similar job, we can just loop through it once and do it. You know, it's like if you're driving and you're like, oh, I'm on the way here, let me stop somewhere else and save myself another trip. So we had initially 33 lines, I guess, to make all those objects, put them in lists. Now we have 9 lines doing the same thing. Isn't that nice? I think so.